Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:30. And we're expecting Joe still. And Joe has told us, as I call this to order, he needs to leave early. So I'm going to ask you, Phil, you said something about we need to make a vote to move the agenda around. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would just be just a quick vote sorry, I'm trying to pull up the agenda right now, to move I guess the council update, so 5B, up
Okay.
into the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. So
And then Joe didn't respond on whether he's got something for 4J, the Safe Streets and Roads for All, but
okay,
if he does, we'd have to move that as well.
right. So let's start by moving. I'll entertain a motion to move the council update from Joe as soon as he gets online, because he does have to leave, which is 5B. And if the other one comes through, then Phil, we will entertain that motion as well. Or do you just want to include them both together? Let's go ahead and include them together.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not positive the exact process that has to be followed. I think whatever you.
So I'm going to entertain a motion to move 4J and 5B to the front of the agenda as soon as Councilman Maldonado gets online. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you, Andrew. Do I have a second? Okay.
Second.
Was that Miranda?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Miranda. Thank you very much. All those in favor of moving this when Councilman Maldonado gets online, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. All right, let's move along then. I've already called the meeting to order. I will entertain the draft minutes as item number 2A on the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at Phil's last set of minutes? Is there any discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Andy made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Miranda. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, moving right along. Public appearances for non-agenda items. Scott or Phil, is there anybody that is signed up or anybody that is in chambers?
I don't believe so.
Okay, then let's move on to number 4. Phil, the agenda is yours. Resolutions.
All right. I think we've got Joe here, so let's start with Joe. Did you have anything for the Safe Streets for All item?
No, I got your email, Mark. I inquired with our administrator, but he's still checking in on both of those items. So
okay. So the brief update there then for everybody is just that there is a grant program that Alderman Maldonado sent to me and Mark a couple weeks ago that Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg announced. There's a Safe Streets for All programs. They're essentially looking for programs around the country to fund with road safety types of programs. It's not something that we've had much of a chance to look into yet. I think it's a deadline in September, so we'll see if we're able to pull something together by then.
Phil, can I ask a question, both of
Sure.
Councilman and you? Would this be something that I know Steve Arnold has wanted, the Greenway signage up Fish Hatchery? Would this be something that would fall under there?
It's possible. I have to look at the details. A lot of these grant programs tend to specifically exclude signage as a project that can be funded, but I haven't looked on this one to see if that's a possibility.
Okay.
My hope would be, and I am I'm speaking without looking at the specifics of the grant, without talking to Andrew McFadden yet about whether this would even be possible. But what comes to mind for me is something like the intersection that's being planned at Sain and East Sherrill. There was discussion about making that a protected intersection, and due to cost, we decided to just make it a standard signalized intersection. The timing may not be right here, but that type of a thing, I think would be a great candidate to add some additional funding and and adjust plans for an upcoming project to make it more bike and pedestrian friendly. That's the kind of thing that I have in mind.
Okay.
But I got to talk with Andrew about whether we have anything that fits that category.
Okay. And the other thing that Joe had mentioned, I asked what the status was of the ARPA grant where we were awarded, where the bike committee was awarded $15,000 for approved bike parking in some of our parks. And is that what you reported on there, Joe?
Yes.
With Chad? Okay. So we've got money there to update this. So anything else then, Councilman, from your perspective about cycling or biking or anything else we need to know from the council before? I know you got to leave early, so.
Yeah. Excuse me all. I can only be on for a few minutes. I have a work conflict, but Phil, would you allow me to share a screen? I just wanted to give updates on some of the biking events.
For sure. You should be able to click share screen.
I've got access.
Okay.
All right. So as you all know, there were a series of bike events in and near Fitchburg hosted by the Wisconsin Bike Federation and Dream Bikes, along with some other sponsors and volunteers. So, essentially, they would set up shop every Tuesday throughout the month of May at different locations. There were 2 at Western Hills Park, 2 at Luna's Groceries, and 2 at King James Way or Pocket Park. So there were 64 participants throughout the month. And then here's a quick breakdown by demographic group of who participated. I've also got specifically highlighted how many of those participants were from Fitchburg. So there were 23 Fitchburg residents that accessed these events. And then I've got a quick breakdown of bar charts with the same information, including age.
Joe, does this include the Fitchburg, the Leopold bike giveaway?
This does not. So
Okay.
Those numbers can be added separately, but I just wanted to make sure the committee saw these numbers in our journey to cycling gold.
Right. No, this is excellent. And again, what I was referencing from the Leopold, we had a giveaway at Leopold. It's supposed to be a bike rodeo, but Mother Nature didn't cooperate. So we just had it indoors. But Joe, this is great. So thank you for putting this in a modern manner. We can use it as we apply. So these are
Absolutely.
things.
There's also photos. So if we need any type of pictures for the report, I can get those to you and Phil.
Go ahead and send them to us because we're kind of collecting what we need to get put together. And I'll talk more about that under the gold report. So again, thank you for your engagement. I appreciate being able to get to you as a biker yourself, and the things that we're doing are great. And I would encourage any of our bike members, if we are available, to volunteer to help out with these things. I was able to hit Leopold. I did not get over to Luna's, but help out where you can as we do these kind of things in our city.
Absolutely. Also just want to give a thanks to all of the volunteer mechanics. Most of them didn't work for Dream Bikes. They were just, folks who gave their time and effort to these events. So
okay. All right.
Appreciate the committee for hearing me out.
Yeah, no problem. Well, you get to work, sign off when you need to go to work. And in the meantime, thank you for your updates. Phil, do we want to ask Joe about we talked about Safe Streets. I'm sorry. Okay. Then let's go back to the agenda under number 4.
Sure. And I can ask Joe really quickly while you're on here. Do you know, so we have 4 resolutions and then an ordinance. All 4 resolutions were already have gone through the full council process. So Joe, do you know if we still need a vote from Bike Committee or if this is just more for information purposes?
It's informational. In the future, what I'd like to do is get these things on our radar prior to council votes. But obviously for some of them, there was time sensitivity required. So
yeah.
Well, I think there's a complaint that comes from Bike Fitchburg. We need to really work with Andrew and Bill Balke and maybe the planning department to hear about these things before they get into the budget, the planning, formal planning cycle. I think it will save a lot of emails, number one, but it can help us become more bike awareness throughout the city. So I would just plead that we try and find a way to better do it. I think it's improved than when I first started this committee, but we still got a ways to go. That's my editorial comment.
Yep, and I'm always talking with Andrew about changes that can be made. As Joe mentioned, a lot of the time the timing just doesn't allow for it. You know, we're not necessarily planning things out 6 months ahead. So stuff sort of pops up as it's time to work on it. But yeah, it's definitely something that Andrew's keeping in mind and we're trying to work on. So the first two items here, actually 4A and 4B, Resolution R7822 and Resolution R8122. These have to do with, there is a planned development on Traceway Drive. Actually, let me see if, I know there are big packets for these. I don't know if there's anything worth, I don't think I need to pull anything up here with a screen share, but there is a project being planned on Traceway Drive by Plesco Development. Plesco owns several of the multifamily buildings over there on like Traceway and Post. And this is really just about planning out the multi-use path that's going to be in front of Plesco along Traceway. Item 4A, Resolution R7822, was approving an agreement that went through the Plan Commission, essentially just approving the development plan for that site, which included an 8-foot wide multi-use path. 4B, Resolution R8122, is pertaining to approving an easement to allow for that 8-foot multi-use path. There was a discussion about this and a question of whether we were going to call a special bike committee meeting. It didn't sound like that was probably going to be impactful in terms of the final decision, so Mark and I decided against it. But really there was a discussion just about whether this was going to be an 8-foot multi-use path or 10-foot, and if it was going to be asphalt or concrete. The discussion kind of went around in a lot of circles, but ultimately the decision was in order to maintain the terraceway, the space for trees along the road, and then also to be consistent with what was likely going to be developed in front of the neighborhood hub. So this is going to be directly adjacent to the neighborhood hub. That's likely to also have an 8-foot path. So there were discussions about expanding to 10, and council decided against that, and just to approve an 8-foot multi-use path. So that's those first two items there. I don't know, Joe, if there's anything that I'm missing there, if anybody's got any questions or comments on that.
No, you summarized it.
Phil, can I add one?
Sure.
Here? All right, I would add, as part of that discussion, Phil alluded to the greenway and the width of the path. Once you get past the new neighborhood hub, heading up towards Leopold along Traceway, there's a 4-foot wide sidewalk. And the greenway requirements are bigger than that. And I know that Steve Arnold from Bike Fitchburg had wanted that to be increased. There's nobody even actively talking to Plesco about that. So that's just an FYI. The other thing is, I did ask, could we remove parking along the street and put a bike lane there? And I was told the street's not wide enough and there's not enough parking. So we did try and find other alternatives along with this, but Phil has accurately reflected it. That's all.
All right, thanks. The next two items, and these, I'll try to pull up really quickly. I had a brief chat with Andrew about these on Teams last week. Again, two resolutions that have already been approved, approving engineering services for resurfacing on Purcell Road and Grandview and Vroman Road. I'm not confident that these, so he said these two resolutions approved design services for the roadway resurfacing projects if the city was awarded grant funding. We found out we're not getting grant funding, so these projects will not proceed. I'm not entirely confident why this was sent to bike committee. He said these projects didn't include widening for bike lanes because the intention of the grant was for straight pavement replacement project. So it wasn't any reconstructions, just repaving that could be designed in a couple months. But yeah, so one, the resolution has already been dealt with, and two, it sounds like it is not germane anyway, as the grants weren't approved for those. But those are the 4 resolutions that we had on our docket for this month.
Okay, why don't you continue on, Phil, and talk, and as you talk about the next one, remind everybody where Oregon Road is, because I had to look it up myself.
Sure thing. Yep, and I can do a screen share on this one. So we've got this here in the memo. So what we're talking about here is, this is Rimrock Road, or Highway MM, as you're coming down from the Beltline, and here's Park Street, or Highway 14, coming down as well. So the Novation campus up here, that's part of the town of Madison, that's going to be incorporated into the city of Fitchburg this October. So Oregon Road is just this section here, and the ordinance would prohibit parking on Oregon Road during for this stretch highlighted in red.
Okay.
So that matches the condition north of Novation Parkway. It doesn't sound like, Joe, it didn't sound like there was much debate on this one. It went, it doesn't sound like there's anybody that's opposed to this.
Mm-mm.
Do we need to vote on this, Phil?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any more you have to present on it?
No, I don't have any information really beyond what's in the packet. It's just looking at just prohibiting parking here and having traffic signs up rather than painting that stretch of curb yellow.
Joe, do you have anything to add? Joe may be gone. All right, let's go ahead. I'll entertain a motion to approve this ordinance on prohibiting parking on both sides of Oregon Road.
I make a motion. Go ahead. I'll second.
Okay. Who made the motion? Andy seconded it.
I did, Joe.
Okay, Joe. Oh, Joe's still there. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, we will move to a vote. All those signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, Phil, you've got that. Now you're on to bicycle related events or in and around Fitchburg, and Joe's already given one update. I touched on the Leopold giveaway. What else? There you go, Phil.
So yeah, upcoming events here. We've got, let me make sure I've got them in sequential order. So first, I guess this was 2 days ago, was the brewery bike race. So this is one that Delta Brewery, this is also part of that town of Madison, that's going to be annexed into Fitchburg in October. So Delta has done this for a couple years in a row as part of Bike Week, as they partner with another local brewery and encourage people to get out on their bikes. This morning, unfortunately, I didn't know enough in advance when the Bike Fitchburg commuter station was going to be as part of Madison Bike Week. So that's this morning, that's happening right now, which is why we don't currently have either Steve Arnold or Tony Hartman in the meeting. I think Tony's going to try to break away to get here before the end of the meeting to give a Bike Fitchburg update. But we should be getting some numbers from Bike Fitchburg at some point later this week. They usually do a traffic count as part of that, and so that'll hopefully get us a little bit of confirmation of the traffic counters that we've got over by the Velo Underground as well. Other upcoming events include, excuse me, oh, I guess I forgot to mute it. Other events include the Fitchburg Festival of Speed coming up on July 9th. That's going to take place mostly over at the Agora Parkway, where it's kind of centrally located over at Agora, and there are a number of different events as part of that, different walks and runs, the state bike criterium, I believe that's a larger tournament qualifying bike race, music and food. If you haven't, I actually haven't gotten into it before either, so I'm speaking to myself as well. If you haven't gotten to it, I've heard it's a great time and worth making a trip for it. And then July 15th is also the 20th annual Move for Boys and Girls Club. So this used to be Bike for Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. But this is one of the big fundraisers for Boys and Girls Club of Dane County every year. On July 15th, I believe, is a Saturday.
It's July 16th, Phil.
July 16th. Thanks, Mark. Yep. Thank you.
And I'm on that committee. And to give you a little update, I think our biggest focus again this year is safety. And we met with the police yesterday. They're going to be on several spots, including getting people out of the park. And there's going to be if you would want to consider setting up a team or joining a team, I know Andy and I have already joined Thad Schumacher's team, but they're looking for events, and this is going to be a big deal. In addition to the stuff in the park, there's going to be a Gladys Knight concert. Now, most of you, unless you're my age or older, probably don't know who she was or is, but she's a singer from Atlanta, and they're going to have that at Overture Hall. So they're making a big deal with this. It's all geared to the McKenzie Center funding. So.
And let me change the share that I'm doing here. I'll just get the whole screen. So I would encourage you to click. I made the the icon here in this slide clickable. So if you go to the agenda packet, click on that. That'll bring you to the website for this event. So I definitely encourage you to click that link, check it out. Here's just kind of a sampling of some of the routes that you can join in on. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really good event, as it always is.
Yeah, they're looking both for volunteers as well as participants. So Thad will be happy to have any of you join the team.
So yeah, those are all the big events coming up in the next 2 months or so. Again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, Ride the Drive was canceled for this year. City of Madison was just struggling to get fully staffed up, I think, with the Parks Department following some of the fallout from the pandemic. So hopefully they're going to bring that back in 2023.
Okay, anything else on bike projects from the group other than what Phil has reported on? Or bike-related events, I'm sorry. Hearing none. Phil, we're on schedule. Why don't you go ahead and cover projects impacting our network?
All right. So a little bit shorter list than we've had at some other meetings. We've got the South Scion Road rework is still planned. We've got all of our bids. The update in April is that we were looking to get kind of 90% complete bids returned. We have them all, I believe. I think we've selected a bid. I'm not positive on that, but hoping to begin work on this project by mid-August. And again, just as a reminder, this is being split into two sections. One is up at the McCoy-Scion intersection, and the other is the remaining length of Scion down to Aurora, just beyond Aurora Avenue. The city is also applying for grant funding to assist with this reconstruction, some of the bicycle work associated. Then we've got, I did forward this to the committee, right? This, oh, sorry, this is a separate, that's the next one. So this is about the rectangular rapid flashing beacons that we had crossing McKee Road that we lifted because of the construction of the Badger State Trail bridge over McKee. So we didn't need the beacons there anymore. So looking for a candidate to put those beacons in the best option that we've got is on the Capital City Trail where it crosses Seminole Highway. We have enough equipment to place beacons there. Part of the reason for the delay right now is that there is apparently a little bit of an issue in terms of everything communicating together. So Andrew's working with the operations group to try to get those refurbished. They're hoping to install them this month. We'd like to also get beacons placed on the Cannonball Path going over Seminole. We don't currently have the equipment for that. And I think it would take some additional funding. So that would potentially be another candidate if we're going to put together an application for that Safe Streets for All program. Some safety beacons here on Cannonball would be a good candidate there. But my understanding is right now we still don't have the funding in our budget for another set of beacons. But in the medium term, that's, as far as I know, that is still the goal to get both of those signalized.
So Phil, that's a great idea the way you're doing that as far as priorities. I think with Cannonball, at least you got a stoplight a little bit before there. and
Mhm.
traffic slows down a little bit. The other one, you're
Yeah, so
coming around the curve. And
we've got a
going-
stoplight there. Yeah, you don't have the curve. It's more of a straightaway, so it's more visible. And there's also the median halfway across, so pedestrians and cyclists can cross halfway and then wait. So it's just already this intersection's a little bit safer. So that plus just the amount of traffic when they did a quick traffic count last summer, there was enough volume on Capital City Trail crossing Sentinel that they felt that was the right priority.
Yep, great.
This is the one that I think I emailed the whole committee about. Madison Metro Sewerage District is doing another reconstruction project. So you'll remember last year they shut down the bike roundabout for several months because they needed to do some interceptor rework with some pipes. There is another force main rework that they're doing, and the rework itself. So here's that force main, but the work that they're doing is going to result in some kind of some spillover and road closures. So they looked at a few different routes as possibilities for how they wanted to run this line, and what they decided on essentially is going to have this gravity interceptor coming up across Military Ridge State Trail here. So at some point, I believe this year, I don't see a schedule yet for the project actually being completed, but they're going to have a meeting in summer. I thought I saw a date on here. It just says summer 2022. There will be an update. So whenever they do end up working on this project, it's going to require a detour around this section of Military Ridge State Trail. So at that point, I would imagine we'll get some heads up, and I'll look to engage the bike committee again on just trying to figure out what the best detour would be there. It's not an easy one, just because there aren't any ramps on and off for this section. So it might be something like, if you're on the Military Ridge Trail here, coming up through Community Park, going up along Maple Grove Drive and up towards Nesbitt, and then routing back down Fitchburg, something like that. But when the time comes, we'll talk about that and see what the best detour route would be.
Okay, thank you.
And then just a couple other updates from Public Works. They put some green pavement markings on Fish Hatchery Road, similar to what we already had on McKee after the reconstruction there last year. City's applying for grant funding for 3 street reconstruction projects involving bike lanes. And then thanks, Mark, for pushing us on the Capital City Trail signage. If you're coming down off of the Capital City Trail bridge over Fish Hatchery Road, you go north along Fish Hatchery. What you need to do next to stay on the Cap City Trail is turn right on Glacier Valley Road. The signage wasn't installed clearly, or maybe at all, following the Fish Hatchery work last year. So we needed to get a sign on there to make sure that everybody was correctly routed. So that sign is, I believe, is there now.
Yes. And again, we need to thank our colleagues at the Dane County, because they it took a second reminder, but they did do it, and they got it done in 2 days. So they must have had them in the shop.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's everything I've got for projects involving the bike network.
Any questions on the projects before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, that's a good update. We still got a lot of work to do, and we'll continue to help where we can. So the next 3 agenda items are actually H, I, and K are all Mr. Potts. So Andy, we're going to give you the microphone and floor and let you walk through them.
Sure. So the first item is a project called Cycling Without Age. So this is something that I'd actually found out about probably 3 or 4 years ago through my role with the Governor's Bike Council. It was originally started in Denmark, and the idea was to provide senior citizens or people with just limited mobility opportunity to ride bicycles. And they had actually at that time started a chapter in Appleton, and were looking statewide. At the time, I had Jill McComb with the senior center. And we had a little bit of interest in it, but never really got off the ground. So anyway, what the program actually is that local, it can be either a senior center or it could be some nursing homes, will go out and fundraise to purchase a trishaw. And a trishaw is essentially it's like a rickshaw, except that it's a tricycle setup. So you have somebody riding a bicycle that's an e-bike, and then there's either seating behind them or in front of them for one or two people. Oh, it looks like Phil is going to pull up examples of trishaws. Thank you. And the idea is that you then have a chaperone volunteer who can then take people out on the bicycle. This is really, again, people with mobility who could, who at this point probably no longer have the ability to cycle themselves. And then working through, as I said, either a senior center or some other entity that would actually have the bikes and coordinate the volunteers, provide rides to people in the community, and they could have them either on demand basis or have set times to go out and do loops around the community, take people potentially even to, it's mostly kind of recreational focused, could potentially have stops at stores and things if necessary. That's really, actually, Phil, if you want to do kind of the quick video, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know if I can easily have the audio playing here, but at least can kind of.
I don't know if the audio is probably not going to play, but you should be able to at least kind of see what how these work.
Andy, what's the cost?
But again, this is something that I talked to the senior. They vary in cost. They're anywhere from about $2,000 to $8,000, depending on what model you get and kind of what level of electronic assist you get with them. So it's really, I think it's kind of, the question for the group is really, is this something that we would be interested in exploring? As I said, I think Jill and I had talked about it years ago, and it was still, I think the project was still kind of in its infancy. Now that it's a little bit more established and there are actually a number of chapters around the state, including several in Dane County, is this something that maybe this group would want to work with the senior center on at least exploring what would the demand be from the senior center? I think the first step would probably be have Jill reach out to I forget, they've changed their name recently, whatever the senior advisory committee calling itself these days, just so there'd be interest there. And then kind of work out what would a reasonable number of bicycles be, what would that cost, how would we fundraise for, kind of get through all the logistics of it. If Phil can zoom in, Verona is actually the closest one that has a cycling without age chapter.
Well, I think I'm going to react to this, first of all, since I'm becoming a senior, but second of all, David Hill, one of the associate directors, is a very, very, very big bike rider. And I think someone like him would be happy to talk to us about this, including Jill. I would get in front of their advisory board and talk to them, see if there's an interest, because I've had several requests. Do we want to do some of the senior folks would like to do an organized bike ride. And between us and Bike Fitchburg, I would think we would be able to support that when they're ready to do it. But I think it's a great idea. And I don't know how the rest of you feel, but it would be something that, maybe do a little fundraising or even put it in their budget. Or would this be a grant to apply for, Phil, as we think about these things? So my 2 cents is I'd like to see it go forward. I'll help where you need me. Others?
Yeah, Andy, would you like me to reach out to Jill and David? Is that something that you wanted to take the lead on? Or I think, Mark, I agree this would be a good item for grants, but we'd have to know that we can actually get a chapter going here and that we'd have people to run it. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, Phil, maybe if you and we can try to coordinate to reach out to them. And the good suggestion on David, I think I kind of always forget that he's a big cyclist.
Yeah, he rides to work like you, Andy. He rides to work every day.
Yeah, I'll throw that in as an action item for Andy, for you and me to connect after this meeting and talk about how we want to move forward and try to engage the senior center.
Sure. And I guess kind of how we got started back on this. So I believe a number of us on this committee all attended the Saras Gala, and Cycling Without Age was at the gala presenting. But I think it was really nice that they were helping shuttle people from the parking lot up to the actual building of Saras. So you could actually see one of these trishaws in action and get an idea of the size and what it could actually do.
And am I right? That was a couple of high schoolers from the Cross Plains chapter that were there?
I believe so.
I think it was Cross Plains.
Yeah, the thing's really exploded. Again, it was about 4 years ago when I had first heard about this, and they had a chapter in Appleton. As you saw from the map Phil pulled up, they're all over the state now, and really all over the country. It's been kind of incredible how quickly this program has grown, and I think it'd be kind of a shame if Fitchburg got left behind on that one.
Yeah,
especially as we're moving forward towards going for gold and trying to ensure that biking is accessible to everybody.
I think that's the key thing with this. Plus, we're getting some requests about considering something like this. So I would encourage, if you and Phil and Andy are going to talk to the senior center, that keep us advised, tell us where we can assist. And if we need to get the mayor and the alders involved, that would be a good thing. But like I said, we've also got, Jill's got those two advisory boards. There's a council on aging, that's a city committee, and then she's got her advisory board that also does this kind of thing. So I think this is great, guys. Okay, I'm going to keep the agenda moving. Andy, you're next about Bright at Night.
Okay, I actually don't have much of an update on this one. I've been trying to get in touch with Ned Hart. We just need to find some extra to sit down and talk about this from the police department. I did have some conversations with Fitchburg. They do have some lights that are available. So again, to recap, Beep at Night is a Madison program by, and then there's a similar run through UW-Madison Department, whereby a government entity, in the case of UW-Madison, it's their police. In the case of the city of Madison, it's their the public library system, provide lights to people so that when they're biking at night, a legally required lights on beat. It's incredibly dangerous not to have them. That's one of the most common causes of serious and bike accidents is cycling at night without lights on. So I really do need just kind of back on the front burner and get a hold of Ned as well as the library and just kind of figure out who would be the best, if not both of them, conduit for distributing lights, and then find a better source on actually getting the lights. So Bike Fitchburg has lights, but they're just kind of the red blinky lights that they would half of the lights we need, but probably are not the best source for what we would for this program. But I'm hoping to have more of an update at our next meeting.
Andy, you don't need to get to Lieutenant Hartwick. You should talk to Mike Burry or Sergeant Lisa Heitman. They're the two that are coordinating bicycling for Fitchburg now. His job's changed. So
okay.
They told me that when we met with them yesterday about the Boys and Girls Ride.
Sure.
Okay, let's keep forward.
I will stop trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What are you doing? I'm sorry. Are you ready to talk about the tunnel?
Oh, I said I'll stop trying to pester him.
Well, let's talk about the tunnel.
Sure.
Andy.
So the tunnel.
This is an interesting one.
So this is, if you notice, we had a kind of large packet this month. That's because probably like 40 of the page related to the tunnel. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the Stuart Tunnel is on the Badger State Trail near Belleville. It's one of the few railroad tunnels in southern Wisconsin that is in existence. And it have a a height of the Badger State Trail, which, as you know, runs through Fitchburg. We've got about 6 miles of the total core in Fitchburg. But several years ago, the DNR noticed that portions of the tunnel were collapsing, and there was a serious, thank you, Phil, pulling up on the map, just sort of where Stuart Tunnel is in relation to Fitchburg. So we're go probably just enough you might be able to see there. There's the gray area that it is Fitchburg. So obviously this is tunnel is not actually in Fitchburg, but I think it is sort of a key piece of infrastructure on the Badger State Trail, which, as I said, does run through city of Fitchburg. So as I mentioned, DNR was having concerns about the structure of Stuart Tunnel, primarily concerned that with the potential for rocks falling down from the tunnel, that somebody could get hit by one and did not want that liability. And so thus they have made various attempts to gate off the tunnel. Initially, I think they were just using construction barricades. They've since now installed kind of a plastic fencing to try to keep people out, and have rerouted the Badger State Trail over onto Tunnel Road. So it's a several mile detour, and it's actually a fairly steep detour. And there's a reason the tunnel was built in the first place. There's a very steep hill there, and it was easier for the trains to go through the hill rather than go up and over, given the grade considerations. So DNR commissioned a study on alternatives for the Stuart Tunnel, and that is the item that was included in the packet. And so there's really kind of, I think you could look at it as 3 main alternatives to Stuart Tunnel. One would be to try to repair the tunnel and do so in a way that would be safe, either through, there's several different options. One would involve putting netting up. So in the event that any rocks were to fall, they would be caught by the netting. There's an option to essentially build a tunnel within a tunnel. One would be using a metal corrugated tunnel structure. The other would be using a cast concrete structure. And the other alternatives mostly involve abandoning the tunnel, either just making the current road detour permanent, trying to find another off-road detour that could be a permanent rerouting of the trail. Or the last option would be, in essence, to remove the tunnel and to excavate it out, and it would essentially just become a rock cut instead.
Is there any decisions made yet, Andy, on this? How they're going to proceed?
There are not. There are not. One other big consideration I have to throw in there is that the tunnel is home to bats. I don't believe they're on the endangered list just yet, but that's based on where their population is going. It's probably just a matter of a year or two before they are an endangered species, in which case that will severely limit the options for what to do with them. But that's also a consideration from the DNR when they were looking at it is both using netting or really, I think it's either abandoning the tunnel and rerouting around with then allowed to just be a bat habitat, or some of the alternative where they would be basically in a tunnel within a tunnel, or designed to help promote bat habitat, so that the endangered bats that are in is essentially a cave, not be impacted. So originally the DNR had a comment period that was going to be open through June 1st. This meeting was after June 1st, plus the Governor's Bike Council's meeting next week. So I called up the DNR and asked if they'd be willing to delay the comment period for 2 weeks, and they graciously said yes, would do that. So really, at this point, they're just looking for input from the public, or input from bodies such as this one. If we have any thoughts on which alternatives would make the most sense, I guess I can try to answer any questions if anybody has it.
I don't suppose you know what species of bat lives in there.
I want to say they're little brown bats, which I think is the actual name of them, but I'll double check.
I think it's in the document, folks, because I did read those 28 pages. And I think it is in the document.
All right.
The question, Andy, for the bike council is, where's the money coming from to pay for this? I know we can say it helps our infrastructure and the biking infrastructure of the state, but where's this getting put on around as far as the other priorities go across the state? I guess I'd like to have that committee answer that as it goes forward.
Sure, but it's a good question. I would say at this point, the DNR doesn't know.
Okay.
So my guess would be that this would probably be a Knowles Nelson stewardship project. So most of that funding it's supported by general tax dollars and is bonded. So this would be something where they would take a bond out and use general tax dollars to pay it off over the next 20 years or so.
Okay.
That would be my guess to what they would do. Knowing the cash flow situation. So DNR does, when you buy your trail pass, DNR takes that money, puts it into a segregated account. They do have several $1 million in there, but they certainly don't have enough that they could cash fund something like this.
Thank you.
They could, but they would not be able to do anything else in the state.
Thank you. Do other committee members have questions about Andy about the tunnel? Thank you for that thorough update, and thank you for the attachment again. Phil, you did get it to it, or somebody? Yeah, we did get it, so we've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're ahead of schedule, and I'm going to keep us moving. I'm going to give a real quick update on the bike-friendly committee. I met with Phil about 2 weeks ago, and we came up with a list of things that we need to map out about what else we need to do to be able to apply. And I'm pleased to say that we're making progress, I think, in every area where we have deficiencies. We also got some things that we got to get done before we can apply, number one. Number two is that the bike league still has not put out the new criteria. It was supposed to come out in the spring. Now they're saying the fall. I checked their website yesterday. So my plan with the bike friendly committee, because I continue to get questions asked by the chamber and by our city leaders, is where we are. And I'm going to convene our little work group, hopefully by the end of June, most likely on a Zoom meeting, just so we can touch base. And we can have, I've asked Phil to kind of develop a mock-up of when he thinks would be a good time to apply. We're not ready to apply now, and nobody disagrees with that. We've still got time. But I think that we're getting everything addressed on that on the issue list with the league. I'm also going to call Amelia next week just to touch in and tell her we haven't forgotten things. The one thing I will tell you is that Andy, myself, Steve Arnold, and I think Tony are working with businesses to apply for bike-friendly businesses. I helped the Boys and Girls Club submit one yesterday. We've seen Thad Schumacher get approved as a bike-friendly business. And we've got about 4 or 5 others that I think are in various ways of applying either now or in the fall. So I think we're getting some traction here. That's all a good thing. Phil, that's really all I've got to add. Would you add anything different, Phil, based on our discussion?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Questions from any of you? Okay, Phil, you're on for the bike committee report or staff report. Sorry.
All right. So staff report, we've got, I think we discussed at a previous meeting that I was working with Angela over at the chamber to update Bike the Berg maps. Looking back several iterations, at some point it had been indicated that there were mountain bike trails in the south branch of the Arboretum, the UW Arboretum. Definitely not the case. Those trails aren't bikeable. So they've updated those maps. There are new copies that were available at the first time I saw them was at the sort of media event for Thad's, the Fitchburg Family Pharmacy bike-friendly business event. I have reached out to Angela to find out if we can get some of those copies for City Hall. I haven't heard back yet, but hopefully we'll have those physical copies available at City Hall soon, and I'll try to make sure that we get an electronic version on our website as well. As we've referenced a couple times in this meeting, Town of Madison Incorporation is coming this October. I don't know that we will have anything to discuss as a bike committee, but we might want to have that either on the August or October agenda to talk about how the bike committee might need to work with city leadership on evaluating bikeability in those parts of the Town of Madison that are being incorporated into Fitchburg. But yeah, that's Mark and I will likely work to put that on an agenda at some point later this year.
That's a good idea.
The neighborhood hub is planning for that is moving forward. So the Common Council just voted a few weeks back on different options for the neighborhood hub. The one they ended up voting on does still include the bike playground that we've been discussing. So that is that's still the plan, is to have a bike playground at the hub that kind of complements the pump track over at Leopold Park that Madison has put in. We're still hoping to receive funding from Dane County Parks. So there was the Park and Ride grant that I applied for last year. Basically what they told us was, we love your project. We don't have enough funding for everybody. We're going to look at your application next year and likely fund it. Still going through some back and forth with the county and hoping that we get that funding from them. If we don't, I think we should still be okay with the bike playground, but it sure would be nice to get some assistance from the county. We were really happy with our application, felt the project was a really good fit for what they were looking to fund. So now just kind of waiting to hear some updates from them with where their funding is at for this year. And then just moving forward with B-Cycle as well, and trying to make sure we get phase 1 implemented this year so that we can start working out phase 2, where we're going to get the local match from, and then I think I don't remember if I was able to announce this in April, that the Greater Madison MPO for the TAP grant that we applied for in January did recommend our project to be funded. So that phase 2 of B-Cycle, the expansion to the city campus and several other local community spots, one up at the Boys and Girls Club potentially. Anyway, phase 2 is going to be funded through the DOT's TAP grant. So we'll get about 75% funding from the state, and then the other 25% needs to be come up with locally. But before we get moving on that, got to get phase 1 implemented and start getting people out on e-bikes around Fitchburg. So looking forward to that happening later this summer.
Okay. Anything else, Phil?
That's all I've got.
Okay. I'm going to add one to your B-Cycle. They hope to have them on the ground in July and August. They're on order. So this is coming to our city. I'm going to move into announcements. If there's nothing, because we don't have Steve and Tony here. I can tell you 2 things about Bike Fitchburg. One is they're hosting their Bike Week event today. Number 2 is there's a group of us, as I mentioned earlier, working to have some of our local businesses apply for bike-friendly businesses. And again, Andy Potts and Tony Hartman are helping on that. If you've got any suggestions for businesses, we can certainly put that list out there for you to see. We're working from a list. We're trying not to work against Trek as they recruit B-Cycle sponsors. The other thing is Steve is also trying to coordinate a parking survey, and I have not been able to touch base with him as to how that's going, but we need to have that as part of our gold application in the fall. And so that is hanging out there with them. They've also got their Bike to the Border that I imagine Andy Potts probably does. I don't ride at night. I have enough trouble staying upright on my bike during the day. So I don't know if it's in September, but that is out on their website as well. So that's kind of an abridged Bike Fitchburg update. Just so you guys do know, I try and attend those meetings, and I give a bike committee update and usually bring follow-up points back to Phil and other members as necessary. So If there's no further questions, I'm going to move into announcements. And I'm going to start by giving one that I need to share. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Just to let you know, Tony did just text me to say he's on his way, so he's hoping to join us shortly.
Okay.
We can stall for a couple minutes.
I asked for ETA, so I'll let you know.
Well, I'm going to stall for a couple minutes. So I'm going to move into announcements then, and we'll come back to Tony. One is I need to give a sad note. Watching the news this morning before the meeting, a cyclist was hit and killed on Mineral Point Road this morning. The person was on an e-bike, that's all I know, but it was on the news around 6 or 6:30. So again, I think it goes back to our committee responsive. Number one is safety on riding in our community. And the more we can get people on these bike paths, I know there's other issues with that, but something happened there. Somebody's already been taken into custody, but a cyclist on an e-bike was hit and killed. So it's, as I said, it's out there. On the good news front, I think Phil did report that the Cap City Trail sign is on there. We've had several complaints over the years about confusion as they get to that intersection right there on Glacier Road, I think. It's right there past the bike bridge heading north on Fish Hatch. So that's a good thing. And then another good thing, Phil, I'd like to have you put this on the agenda for August, is that the police want to reestablish their bike patrol. And Lisa Hartman and Mike Burry are working on this. And they're going to try and start a fundraising effort. And they're trying to put a plan together. I know Bike Fitchburg is also supporting this. So Phil, you might want to invite Lisa or Mike to our August meeting to hear what their thoughts are on that. I think, again, it shows our commitment to cycling in this city, and it'll be a good thing to do. So those are all the announcements I have. Anything else you folks have? Has anybody done anything interesting since we're waiting for Tony?
I guess as one more, I don't think I mentioned this in April. One more announcement is I'm talking with Mark about how exactly this is going to work out, but I will be I'll be taking a couple months later this year for parental leave. So the way the timing works out is I should be here for the August meeting. I believe I'll be here for the October meeting as well. Kind of trying to stagger some time off with my wife. So I think I'll be around for the October meeting. Likely miss the December meeting. The bigger thing is that may just impact the timing of what we do regarding the the gold application for bike friendly communities. So we'll kind of figure out, make sure that no balls get dropped with that going on. But there will be just a little bit of a continuity hiccup towards the later part of this year that should be resolved by early next year. I'll be back full time and not sleeping is my understanding, but physically present.
Well, again, I wasn't going to announce that, Phil, but our congratulations to you as a committee, and wish you well. In the past 3 years,
thanks.
you've taken a new job, gotten married, bought a home, and now are having a child. So you've got them all crossed off.
That's right. My bingo card is getting filled up.
You got it, about life transitions. So congratulations. The other thing I want to talk, why don't we talk about a second while we're waiting for Tony, Phil? We talked about the town of Madison, and there was a chamber event welcoming the businesses at Delta a couple of weeks ago. And I only had a chance to talk to a couple people, but who do we get involved from the city about how we can bring them in? Because they're pretty much, for the most part, for the bike committee's info, it's pretty much south of the Beltline.
Yeah.
And we know that if you try and ride your bike to the brew pub over there, there's not any trails that get you there. You got to end up, well, is it Oregon Road maybe, or end up on Rimrock?
Or you bike up Rimrock, and I think there are paved shoulders there at least. I don't know if they're officially bike lanes, but there are paved shoulders. I can pull up a screen share here.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two sections of town of Madison that are being incorporated into Fitchburg. One is just a small wedge kind of right here north of Popeyes is what's showing up on Google Maps here, but kind of just north there where there's a couple of car dealerships. That's going to be part of Fitchburg now. and then this wedge here between Rimrock, the Beltline, and Park Street. So this is that what we've referred to as the Novation campus. There's this Novation Parkway here. There's a little bit of single family housing, some multifamily, and a little bit of sort of commercial area back here as well. So yeah, Delta is, I believe they're pushing to become a bike friendly business. I'm pretty confident they participate in bike benefits already. They definitely are very cycling friendly. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily the easiest place to bike to. And I think once you get to Rimrock, it's actually not too bad that there's a bikeable shoulder, if not a full bike lane here going north and south. The tougher one for me is once it turns south here, and I think is more commonly then referred to as MM, kind of between there and McCoy Road, where the Capital City Trail comes across. This stretch is not the easiest to bike. There is, I'm pretty sure, enough of a shoulder that you can you certainly can ride it on your bike. I think if you are not as comfortable maybe riding near traffic, it's probably pretty discouraging to try to take this route on your bike. So that would certainly be something that we might want to look into in the future. My guess is that, like with so many other projects, this is the sort of thing that we'd be looking at addressing whenever this stretch of road next needs to be resurfaced. But certainly this would be a candidate for talking with Andrew about how we can make sure that this becomes a little bit easier. There is definitely some wetlands to the east and west. Or I shouldn't say definitely. I'm not sure where that pin is right now. It's got to be back at Stuart Tunnel.
Phil, while you're going back, I think this is a good idea. We look at our priority for 2023 because that road's going to get more traffic. It's connecting us to the city. And secondly, I will tell you, and Andy Potts, maybe you can weigh in here. Riding along Rimrock, that bike lane is extremely rutted and rough, and it probably needs to be repaired or replaced. So, and this is one of the things the Delta folks have said to me. They go, "You can't get to us on a bicycle. You can on the trail the other side coming across, but you still got to cross the Beltline on Rimrock."
So one difficulty here, and this is something that we have also run into when we're looking at options for making North Cyene a little bit easier to bike on. That's also a really, really tough one for a bike. I've only done it once, and it was during a morning commute, not particularly pleasant. But both of these sections, you see it's crossing Nine Springs Creek. There are some wetlands there, and state wetland protections mean that whenever we're looking at any kind of a reconstruction project involving wetlands, expanding the footprint of that road to add bike lanes becomes a little bit more complicated. So that's just something that would have to be kept in mind, and it might change the options available to us in terms of adding bike infrastructure there. But that probably, when we're talking about the town of Madison annexation, I would imagine in terms of bikeability, this is probably one of the primary sections that we'd want to look at and just think about what the city may be able to do, what we might want to propose. I think once you get up into this area, the roads would be considered pretty low stress. If you're looking at like the Dane County low stress bike network map, I think everything back in the Novation campus would be pretty low stress. It's just going along Rimrock and MM there. And what can we do to make that a little bit easier and safer and more comfortable? Looks like we have Mr. Hartman here with us.
Can I just make one quick comment too?
Yeah.
We pulled the map down, but I think, a lot of it is getting the connection between the kind of Southdale Novation campus and the rest of Fitchburg. But I think there actually is a decent connection going to the north. If you zoom in, you can see there's the bike bridge over to Badger Road, which then you can kind of take the back roads to then get up to the Winger Creek bike path. If you see Pitcher's Pub, zoom in. There's actually a bike bridge there that Mr. Hartman has taken numerous times. So there's actually, despite the fact that the Beltline is there, there's actually a fairly decent connection to the north. It's actually to the south where they have problems.
Yeah, and the concern there just being that that we sort of ran into this with some of the detour discussions regarding this construction on Cap City Trail, McCoy Road, Park Street. Is there the roads are kind of few and far between in this area. So when you close off one route, the detour for bicyclists is several miles, and for a number of cyclists, that makes it not really feasible anymore to ride if you add 3 miles to your trip. For more serious and regular cyclists, maybe not such a big deal, but certainly if you're trying to get to this section from Fitchburg, there's definitely a difference between coming up, Fish Hatchery, going over to this bike bridge versus being able to have a more direct route. But yeah, certainly it is bikeable right now, just a little bit more roundabout. Yeah.
So more to come on that.
Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Hartman, you are up for the Bike Fitchburg update, and I'll quickly tell you, I kind of gave an update on the bike friendly businesses process. I also gave a brief update on parking that we don't have much of an update. So the rest of the agenda for Bike Fitchburg is yours.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, I can tell you that the commuter station going strong this morning. I just got in. That's why I was a little late getting back. Unbelievable numbers coming and going. Of course, I would say the majority of folks, obviously this is bike week. You guys probably talked about that. Phil, I hope you're feeling better. I heard that both you and Thad you waited 2.5 years to contract the pandemic's worst, but hopefully you're doing well. We had I don't know if it was a record turnout. I think the weather was conducive. We had Dream Bikes out there actually doing repair work and plenty busy with commuters. We gave away a lot of information, a lot of the chamber stuff, a lot of the things that we produce. The GHC tail lights were going off the shelves. Even got rid of some of those bicycle bottles that melt in the dishwasher. It was just good. Obviously, a lot of people commuting out to Epic, but beyond that, we had people going in every direction, and some folks that you guys would certainly know, and some people like Dawn Krim who hung out for about a half an hour and was another ambassador there, which was great. She was on her way into work, and then there were those who said they were going to work, but they managed to hit the Middleton commuter station with their free coffee and bagels or whatever they were giving out. Then they hit ours and they were headed to the near east side of Madison for waffles. Madison always trying to outdo us, right? So anyway, that was kind of fun. We do, as you know, a lot of events like that throughout the summer. I would say a lot of them are very PR oriented. Obviously, our big event, which we do get, and Andy and Mark involved. I don't know who all's on this call. Actually, I ended up having to call in on my phone here, but thanks for resending, Andy. As soon as I accepted the invitation, the email disappeared. But I am, wanting to stress just a couple of things that we have going that you guys could help us with. One is we still have money in the Just Bikes small grant program. So to the extent you guys or anybody in the city has a, not-for-profit bike initiative or bike program of any kind, we have, grants available up to $500, I think, but they tend to be smaller grants, and that's the Just Bikes group. And obviously they, have been involved, and I don't even know where that money comes from initially. Maybe you guys do, but we still have money there. We've been collecting for the Kyle Stiegert Memorial Fund. You guys may know Kyle. I did not know him, but apparently we've generated several $1,000s. I think we're going to use that for a stand and possibly a bench, a repair stand and a bench. Some of the other things that are going on, I guess the Bike the Berg Challenge, which is, I see that as the big chamber summer-long event that involves multiples like the Fitchburg Festival of Speed. Everybody knows that is, the sponsor of the 25-mile ride. And I don't know, Mark, if you know whether he also gives money for another aspect of that, or it's just the 25-mile ride, or does he buy T-shirts? Or
I think he covered the T-shirts. At least one year he did. So I can't speak to it for now. I don't know.
Right. So some of the other things that happened this spring, loosely related to our group, and a lot of things are loosely related because, as you guys know, we're the advocacy group. But Ryan Husselman did the Ride of Silence on May 18th, which apparently was relatively well attended. They rode into town and around, maybe even around Lake Monona. I'm not sure. Then there was a smart cycling seminar that both Steve, who's been to it multiple times, Steve Arnold, and Mike Grady attended. Mike Grady then is going on to do all the training so that he can become a trainer and an official safety guy for the rodeos. So that's been his point of focus. You guys may also know that his employer is AmFam, and they actually do a matching grants every year, or I should say they donate $500 to our organization every year. So this is the second year they've done that, which helps us, do things like buy coffee this morning. And by the way, we gave away a lot of GHC taillights this morning. I was surprised, even though a lot of these folks are veteran bikers, that's a pretty good little giveaway. We need to find somebody that gives away headlights too, especially for people that don't have the funds. But GHC, I think, pays for them. And Phil, you may know, or Mark, the woman who's renting space from the city over on Lacey Road in the old fire station, who's gives away the bike helmets and is, I think, connected to UW.
Safe Kids is the organization, right?
Yeah, and that's UW. That's affiliated with UW Health.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think maybe they're the ones who actually get the things made, but I'm not positive about that. But they sent me a box of 100 of those, so we'll be giving those away throughout the summer. And again, that's just the light up tail lights. They're battery driven. They come with a little set of AAA's. So a big thing for us is education. Obviously, we talked about that. We did the bike giveaway. I can't remember which one of you guys were there, but we did that over at the with Free Bikes for Kids over at and with Rosa over at Leopold School, and that was right at the end of April. I think we must have given away at least 70 or 80 bikes. We just helped with that. We were assist, but that went off pretty well. We also have, tabling events. We'll do that at the Fitchburg Festival of Speed. We're trying to find a good location. Last year we did okay because we were right next to the toilets, the porta potties. But I think that event in itself could be more promotional for Fitchburg. We need to sort of brainstorm that, I guess, Mark. And since you're part of the chamber and CETA and other organizations, and Andy, I know you do CETA too. We should really put our heads together on how to maximize that because we get so many visitors, and I feel like, just having our table there was helpful, but, we could do better on that one.
Tony, let me stop you there for a second. Why don't
Sure.
you ask Angela for a table at the 3 concerts this summer at McKee? There's 2,000 people that show up to that.
That's an idea. It's not selective for cycling, but you definitely get a lot of cyclists
There's a lot
there.
of
So, yeah.
bikes there and a lot of families, and you can set up by the beer tent.
And I think it's 6 events, so they've got their normal concerts, but Jazz at 5 that moved to McKee Farms Park last year for distancing reasons. They apparently liked it well enough that this year they're splitting half and half between Capitol Square and McKee Farms Park. So there are going to be 3 more in, I think, late July, early August.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's great, Phil. I appreciate that. Our other event this summer is going to be the National Night Out Rodeo. We did it last year as a sort of a mini rodeo, and the officers reached out to us, which was nice. And you guys know that they co-sponsor that, and it is a national initiative. And we held it last year, like right next to the clubhouse over there at Nine Springs Golf Course. And actually, the IMBA folks, the Core Capital Off-Road Pathfinders, lent us their, portable, bike pump track, and we set that up, which was a lot of fun. A lot of the kids jumped on that, and even a few adults. So we'll be doing that again. It's August 10th this year. We do some social media outreach. Steve pretty much focuses on that with Kay's help. Kay is technically our webmaster, Kay Lum, and if you guys have anything that you want promoted, absolutely. We try to work as closely as we can with you guys. So anyways, then I guess business outreach is the other big emphasis, and maybe you've already talked about that, Mark, with our Going for Gold initiative. Or
Yep, he covered that pretty well.
Okay, and bike benefits, I guess, is directly related to that because it's part of what they do then, or they can do. I'm less familiar with it other than you get a sticker on your helmet and you can show up someplace and get a discount. That's another one that would be nice to promote more. And I feel a little bit ignorant about who in Fitchburg is already, involved and how we could, potentially optimize
I think right now in Fitchburg, it's the pharmacy does bike benefits program. Barrique's Coffee does Chocolate Shop does bike benefits. Delta Beer Lab. And I don't remember if the Atomic Koi, the Koi may also participate.
Yeah, you've hit them all, Phil. That's it.
Okay.
There's 5. And as I
Okay,
said,
but the Koi does it too. That's great to know. Okay.
but we're talking to these people, Tony, at least as I'm talking to these businesses, we're including the parking, the bike benefit business application, and bike benefits.
Okay.
And so we need to make a list ultimately like Madison has. Madison has 250 businesses that are in bike benefits. Wow. About 20% of them are bars and restaurants, but there's other things like discounted cleaner. We don't need to spend time on this, but it's part of the whole plan around bike friendly businesses in the city. And
right. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think as you guys said, you've already, hit this once. I'll let you know too that Steve has rebooted the parking census. His goal is to get that completed this summer. And that can go in with our application for, through the League of American Cyclists. You guys may know this. You may have already talked about it. It's just from the rumor mill now fact. Bicycle or Fitchburg Cycles is now wheel and sprocket. The Edwin couldn't keep the rent going over there as an independent, so he invited them in, and he is going to stay there as the manager, at least for the time being. And so our Fitchburg Cycles is now a wheel and sprocket. That happened, I think, just the first of this month. And he's still active. I talked to him about helping us, maintain the repair station and add a pump up there across from Odessa's. And so Jason Adamani and his brother obviously also have, I think, funded that station to begin with there. So let's see. Another one of Steve's, I think, most popular and favorite projects is the Fitchburg Greenway system, for which he keeps going after funding. He got one rejection, but I think he's got some other potential funds. And I think Phil, maybe he's talked to you about that. So you guys have, I'm sure, talked about or hit B-cycle expansion into Fitchburg and all that entails.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then the other things that Steve especially focuses on, and I've asked him to, since it's one of his favorite topics, is to stay on top of public works and parks projects, but especially roads and the stuff that's going on right now, McCoy, West Lacey, South Saline, Stuart Tunnel. You guys know all of these, but I guess we should figure out a way that we can help you guys as the official committee of the city. Just make sure that you guys especially get to see all the projects in advance, because really every road has a shoulder and every shoulder is a potential, bike pathway. So I feel like anything, Phil, that we can do to, help lean on even a guy like the mayor who is a biker, and make sure though that, these things don't just go to the Public Works Committee or finance. They should definitely come through you guys too. And then, that way we find out about them. And, obviously Steve's a real bird dog on stuff like this, but, we don't always have Steve, or, maybe we won't. And it would be nice to have a better algorithm to make sure that we see that stuff. So anyway, that's about it. Anything else you guys want us to know about? Or
Tony, I would add, we spent time earlier in this meeting discussing needing a better process with Andrew McFadden and Bill Balke about roads. Because I think, again, given what happened this morning on Mineral Point, safety on our bikes and roads has to be our first priority as a city.
Well, I didn't even hear what happened. Somebody get hurt?
Oh, you didn't hear what happened?
No.
We had someone killed on Mineral Point Road this morning about 6 o'clock on a bicycle.
Oh.
Sorry, I brought it up under announcements 5 minutes ago, so it's not a secret.
Wow. Yeah.
But
yeah,
there was
the short version is it looks like there was a DUI hit and run.
Yes. Yeah. So I just think it's important. We use those kind of things as we talk to. It didn't happen here, but we use those kind of things as our mantra to make sure our roads and our bike paths are safe. So anyway.
Yeah.
So
hey, well, guys, appreciate you having me. I can stick around for a little bit. I imagine you're close to wrapping up anyway. So.
Yeah, you were the last part. We had announcements, and is there anybody else on the committee that has an announcement to make?
I would just riff off of. I'm glad Tony mentioned this. I totally forgot to. For upcoming events, the Bike the Berg Challenge that the chamber does in the summers. If you're not familiar with that, that's definitely something worth signing up for. So you can pay to get a Bike the Berg T-shirt and just kind of track your riding throughout the summer. And I believe the challenge is to ride 250 miles over the course of the summer. Is that correct?
That sounds right, Phil. Phil, can you go right into the chamber too? Can you ride into the office and sign up there in person, or?
I believe so. I'm not sure. I know they have this online sign up here. So there are some drawings and prizes if you sign up for local businesses. You can get a t-shirt. So some local sponsors as well. But yeah, this is definitely something worth looking into if you're not familiar. The other one is I neglected to mention. So this morning was the Fitchburg Bike Underround, the bike roundabout commuter station for Madison Bike Week. Thursday, Griesmeyer Law and Race Day events are hosting a station at the Badger State Trail where it crosses Sub-Zero Parkway. So that's the other Bike Week morning commute station in Fitchburg. So Thursday morning you can check that one out if since we all missed this morning's.
Are they giving away?
Actually, I didn't.
They're
miss
doing
it.
coffee and donuts.
But yeah, no, it was well attended. We went through 3 out of 4 travelers of coffee, and at least by the time I left, it was actually slowing down, but still going on. And then about 4 boxes of bagels. So
yeah, I'll look forward to getting accounts on how many people showed up.
Yeah, Steve was keeping a clipboard. We were all taking turns. It's a little tricky to tell where the overhead people are coming from sometimes, but it's I guess we have that what do you call it, a curse of riches, or whatever the
embarrassment of riches. Yeah,
embarrassment of riches, right? Because we had people coming from all directions, and it was very interesting to see the variety of bikes. And kids. There were kids on their way to school with their parents, which was kind of cool. And so, yeah. Hey, let's see, you made me think of one more thing, Phil, but now I lost it again. So anyway, thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, thank you, Tony. There's a lot going on, I think, as we know. And since we didn't have any other announcements, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Made by Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Miranda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye. The only other thing I'd remind you, the next meeting is Tuesday, August 2nd. So with that, we got lots to follow up on, and I thank you all for your dedication and participation to cycling, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.